Welcome to the session. So in this session, we are going to discuss reading passage 9. So good job of having taken the test. Let's get started. So always read the blurb. This helps us to know which area this passage is from. So as we can see, this is a literature passage. So let's get started. So here, the two people are taking part in this conversation. One is Jane, and the passage starts with when she expresses her feelings that while he spoke, my very conscience and reason turned traitor against me and charged me with the crime in resisting him. So the passage starts with Jane's feelings. Seems that she is in some sort of a dilemma. On one side, she feels that her reasons, her feelings are going against, and they say, oh, comply. They want her to follow something. They want her to think of that person's misery, the danger, and what if the person is left alone. These feelings want her to tell him that she loves him, right? And also tell him that it's not so much about her own feelings. Nobody cares, right? So, but you should love him. Second paragraph tells us that still indomitable was the reply. That means refusing to subdue or refusing to give in to something. And this whole paragraph talks about that the principles that she has are not allowing her to go for this. So again and again she says that the more solitary, the more friendless, the more unsustained I am, the more I'll respect myself, I'll keep the law given by God. Later also she says that when the both body and the soul rise in mutiny, so this past she tells that laws and principles are not for the time when there are no temptations. These are for these type of moments when it's difficult to decide, and that those are the times when you need to keep up your laws or the principles that you have. So this paragraph is about her principles. Towards the end also she says that if I change these principles based on my convenience, if I break them, what would be their worth, right? So if only I keep them, if I follow them, then only they have some worth. So she says, okay, this is her determination and she is gonna plan, just follow that. After this part, this describes the reaction of the other person, Rochester, and he is very angry. His fury, this brings his fury to the highest. Then this whole part text tells us that how he reacts to the whole thing. I still possess my soul. Often an unconscious but still a truthful interpreter in the eyes. My eyes rose to his. When I looked into his fierce face, I gave an involuntary sigh. His gripe was painful, my overtaxed strength almost exhausted. So this suggests that she understands that he is angry. So we have these words to understand the tone. He seized my arm, grasped my waist. So physically he is strong. She feels powerless. But is she going to give in? After that we have never, he said that never was anything at once so frail and so indomitable, that on one side he finds her frail, weak, on the other side he finds her so that she is not going to subdue. This is so strong, indomitable, you cannot dominate that. A mere reed she feels in my hand, and he shook me with the force. So on one side she looks weak, physically. I could bend her with my finger and thumb, crushed her. I cannot get it. Then it goes that, what do I do with this cage? So he is now reflecting on his feelings in this paragraph. Says, conqueror I might be of the house, but the inmate would escape to heaven before I could call myself possessor. So who is this inmate? That the feelings, the spirit and her body. So even if he tries to cage his, this have become the master of the cage, but still the inmate, which is referring to Jane. right, would still not be caged. Then it says, of yourself you could come with soft flight, nestle against my heart. If you would cease against your will, you will. So again he's trying, and this is the last conversation that we have. He asks that, you are going, Jane? And she says, yes, I'm going. Are you leaving me? Yes. And it tells this that it's not very difficult for her also. You will not come, you will not be my comforter. And what unutterable pathos was in his voice, how hard it was to reiterate firmly, I'm going. So it's not very easy decision for her, because towards the beginning also we have seen that she has this, the feeling. On one side she has this conscience, the reason or the feeling, and the other side she has her principles. So let's start with the questions now. First question is, what is Jane's attitude towards Rochester? She is sympathetic, that we can see from these feelings, that she feels for him. The first paragraph. Uncaring, not really. Rochester may think so, that she may be uncaring because because of her principle she is not giving in, but nothing from the Jane's attitude tells us that she is uncaring. Now, despising is too negative for this context. It's extreme. You despise somebody, you hate somebody. She doesn't show any of those characteristics or feelings toward him. Reckless is careless. So that also, reckless decisions, reckless. So when you are not very careful, doesn't show that anything from her reckless side. So A works here. She is not showing any disregard for, the situation. So she is not reckless. So this goes out. Based on the information in the passage, it can be inferred that Jane refuses Rochester advances because of what? So this was the second paragraph when we read about her principles. So she says that laws and principles are not for the time, that you can violate them later. So here this was the paragraph. She says that they need to be followed. Right? So laws and principles are not for the times when there is no temptation. So this whole paragraph was about that. She does not love him as much as he loves her. So there was no such comparison given. We can't say this. Strong for this. It would violate her personal ideals, principles. So we can connect, yes. He thinks that she is weak and frail. Now note that, can we refer this? Because Jane refused and he feels that she is weak and frail? Not really. He says that at your same time frail, at the same time indomitable also. She wishes to cause him injury. That's too strong. She is worried about him. She thinks of him. She feels for him. So we can't say that. B. Now it's a paired question. If you are not sure of the first part, we can see the line references here. So here we can check. So first and 3, that was the beginning part, but there she did not talk about her principles. So it has to be little later. Second paragraph onwards, so this goes out. Second paragraph, so 13, these are the lines, right? I'll respect myself, I'll respect the law. So this looks good. 36 to 38 was much later. The soul fortunately has an interpreter, often an unconscious, but still, so that is a different context. It's not supporting any part in question number 2. So note that we have to connect it to the first part also. 50 to 51, again that came much later. And because we have already seen that other 3 choices were wrong, then we just need to support answer choice B. So 55 onwards, and it is you, the spirit, will and energy, virtue and purity that I want, not alone your brittle frame. This is more from the Rochester side, not from the Jain side. And again, not supporting anything in the previous part. So, you can check. Here, we have already crossed these out. Otherwise, you would have to look for the line references. But we didn't get anything about love, so we can't say any option. The line references picked any of these three, right? He never said you are only weak or frail, or that she wants to call him into it. So if we are combining together, then we can see that we get be there and be here. In context, the phrase "I'm insane, quite insane" in line number 23 refers chiefly to. So, we need to go to those lines. So this is the part when she is talking about her principles, right? That they are stringent, can't be violated. If at my will or convenience, if I do, what would be their worth? They have a worth and so have believed. And if I cannot believe it now, it's because I'm insane, right? So she has had these principles and she has believed them. I have always believed, note. And she's saying, if I cannot believe it now because she has her feelings going against, she has her mind going against, she said, I feel quite insane. And then she describes what she means, because we have these two dots, which then we know the colons are used to expand on the commentary, give commentary. So it says quite insane, and this part is explained. With my veins running fire and my heart beating faster than I count it strong. So here, because of this, that her veins are running fire and the heart is beating faster. So her current mindset maybe, or her current state of emotions. So this is what she means. Her current state of, let's say, emotions or feelings. Because of, these are the feelings because of which she is fighting these emotions. A severe mental illness, not mentioned in the passage that she has any mental illness. A mental state brought on by God's law. Now, it's not that there was some God's law. So if we see here also, it says, I've kept the law given by God. They are not some God's law or a mental state which brought by these laws. So this is out. A feeling that currently urges Jane to reject Rochester. Now this could be a good temptation, that there is a feeling that currently urges her to reject Rochester. But again, we are not talking about any particular feeling. That there is a feeling that is urging him to reject. In fact, feeling-wise, if we see, feelings are telling him to accept him. It's the principles which are telling her to reject, not the feelings. A reduction of judgment due to emotions, yes, because she has so many mixed emotions. On one side, we have done that she has her principles. On the other side, she has these feelings going in. And that is her current state of emotions. So D looks good. A reduction of judgment due to emotions. Then we have, as used in line 29, wrought most nearly means. So wrought, iron, wrought is used when you can twist something. So hammered, wrung, very close to wrought. So let's just see what does this mean in the context. So line number 29. I did, reading my countenance, saw I had done so. His fury was wrought to the highest. So when you say his fury, anger, was wrought to the highest, that means you are talking about going up. So something increasing, that is what we want. So a word that would mean increase. Now, hammered and rung both means, rung is that you twist something to give it shape. Hammering also, we hammer something to give it shape. They directly go out. We're not talking about making something. Excited would still mean that increase of that emotion. You're excited, your emotion level increases. This is the closest we have here. Made doesn't work. So for question number 5, C is the answer. So be careful that if you have something raw, sometimes the literal meaning may confuse, but always go to the context. See, what would this mean here? The fury was wrought to the highest. So this fury, the anger was got to the highest. So we're talking about increase to the highest. The fourth paragraph, 42-461, provides a contrast between what? So 42 to 61. This is the paragraph this is paragraph about Rochester's feeling. He says you are frail, indomitable, this whole paragraph. Then he says that on one side you can crush, and then he says, what do I do with this cage? Because he says that, and it is you, spirit, with will and energy and virtue and purity that I want, not alone your brittle. So he doesn't want her body alone, he wants her full with the emotions, the energy and her will. Right? Not just her physical presence. Of yourself you could come with me, soft light, and nestle against my heart if you would. So here, what is he talking about? Jane's body and will? Yes. Body is frail, will is indomitable, he is not able to change that. Rochester's love and anger? No, not really. So this whole part focuses on his anger only, and towards the end he talks about love. But in these lines, 42 to 61, this is how it started. Never was anything at once so this, and then he continues to describe this. So this was the main focus. So this goes out. A bird and its cage. So it doesn't say bird and cage. He mentions cage, that what would I do by caging you? But he doesn't show any distinction of cage with bird. So that goes out. Also, this is more of a temptation, that you see the word was there and so you're tempted to pick that. Jane's purity and impurity. He never discusses impurity, that Jane is impure. He always says that he wants her with all purity and her will, not just her body. So, is the answer. The inmate Rochester mentioned in line 53 refers to, who is this inmate? So we all just said when we were reading this part that this is referring to Jane. My outrage will let the captive loose. Conqueror I might be of the house, but my inmate would escape. Right? So he would, if he tries to force her, then also he won't be able to, because the inmate will just go off, will just escape. So this is Jane's. So here also we can see. And it is you, the spirit with the will and the energy. So that is what he is talking about. Jane's spirit, Jane's soul, Jane's will, all those things. He's not talking about any criminal locked away. That's bad. Rochester trapped in emotions. No, this part is talking about Jane. Jane stuck in traditions of her time. This is not about her being stuck in traditions. That not talking about any traditions here. The possible behavior of Jane's spirit, yes, because that spirit is not changing, or it's stuck, or is like the word he has used, that the spirit is indomitable, not subduing. So 7D. which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? So as we have already looked at, so if we go back, we have seen that, okay, we are talking about the spirit and her feelings. So then we have to just go and see which lines were those. So here we are talking about these lines. It is you, the spirit, will all the virtue and the purity that I want. Right? So these are the lines. So which is C. We can see these other lines also, 38 to 41. This is talking about my eyes rose to his when I, so this is not talking about Jane's feelings, but rather that the confrontation that, okay, well, if you look at each other, then what happens? 45 to 47. This is talking about Rochester reacting to that how weak her body is, but not talking about her spirit. 66 to 63 to 65. The look was far worse to resist than the frantic strain. Only an idiot, however, would have succumbed now. This is again not, it is talking about, so as he said this, he released me from the clutches, only looked at me, right? So this part comes when he has released her, and then he just looking at her, and she says that look was far worse to resist than the frantic strain. So here, this is also not talking about the point that we wanted to support, possible behavior of spirit. Okay? So this goes out. Answer is C. As used in line 63, worse most nearly means what? This is talking about him releasing her. He released me from his clutch and only looked at me. The look was far worse to resist. So when you say it was worse to resist, this will mean say that, okay, I wanted to have a food or I wanted to have this particular dish, but it was so worse to resist. It was so difficult to resist. So here it's talking about the difficulty. Was it less desirable? No, it was not less desirable. Less desirable would mean you don't want it. Of nothing about the quality or the skill part came. It's more difficult to resist now. Question number 10. Based on the information in the final paragraph, it can reasonably be inferred that Jane values what she values. So overall we know that she values the law, the principles, and because of which she has taken all this call. So her emotions over her reasons. So we can't say that she has valued her emotions over reasons. So here also we can check how hard it was to reiterate firmly. Right? When he says that you would not be my comforter, and then also she's still fixed to her belief. Freedom over social convention. Her point was not about freedom. Her principles, yes. Over her feelings, absolutely. Because from the beginning we have seen this, that she's talking about her feelings, pushing her to say yes, but then her principles have been fixed. True love overall, no. C is the answer. So that's about this paragraph. In case you have any more doubts, do get those cleared with the teacher and keep prepping and all the best.